Have you ever had the feeling that you're the only person that exists? Consider other people, life itself, and even the universe mere creations of your mind, and acknowledge that there is no way outside your own mind to prove otherwise? If you maintain such views, you be what philosophers call a solipsist. The solipsistic viewpoint is one of extreme skepticism towards the external world. It posits that everything apart from an individual's own consciousness does not exist. This perspective might seem ridiculous at first. How can a single mind conceive all these different experiences that make up reality? It involves senses, people's interactions, world events, science progressions, art forms, cosmic happenings, even down to chocolate. The idea that such a multifaceted and diverse reality comes from one singular consciousness appears not just strange, but almost unfit as a portrayal for existence itself. But the solipsist does not appeal to common sense. The solipsist appeals to logic. Consider the following propositions. All I have direct access to are the contents of my mind, my sensory experiences, thoughts, and memories. The contents of my own mind are entirely private and inaccessible to anyone but me. I am unable to access the mind of any other being, and so can only infer the existence of other minds indirectly. Many people would agree with these propositions. See, for example, Aldous Huxley on the unknowability of other people's minds. Solipsists simply take their implications to their extreme logical conclusions. The only thing I can be sure of with certainty is that my mind exists. Therefore, there are no logical grounds for asserting the existence of anything else. In his 1893 work Appearance and Reality, the British idealist Francis Herbert Bradley characterizes the solipsistic view similarly, writing, "I cannot transcend experience, and experience must be my experience. From this it follows that nothing beyond myself exists. For what is experience is it's the self's states." Although solipsism may seem absurd at first glance, it actually presents us with an extremely difficult logical puzzle, one that many philosophers throughout history have grappled with. René Descartes is probably best known here for his phrase, "I think, therefore I am." Over the years, many philosophers other than Descartes have attempted to refute solipsism, but a generally accepted logical refutation has proven to be rather elusive. Many philosophers simply argue against the possibility of solipsism, rather than offering a logical refutation. For example, a common response to solipsism is to question how on earth a single mind can conjure up an endless variety of experiences. Do solipsists really believe in the idea that every ant, every leaf, every grain of sand, every thunderstorm, every word in every book and on every page of the internet, including this one, is conjured up by an inaccessible part of their mind that they don't know knows? Of course, the mechanistic explanation of this phenomenon can be easily reduced to the standard explanation. The mind-generated beam of light reflects off the mind-generated tomato and hits the mind-generated retina. What value, utility, or explanatory power does the term mentally generated actually add here? Isn't it just a euphemism for what we call the external world? Solipsists might respond that this is not a refutation. Solipsism remains a possibility. Back in the day, people often used the argument from analogy to steer clear of solipsism. John Stuart Mill's 1865 work, An Examination of Sir William Hamilton's Philosophy, provides a classic example of this approach. In reply to the question of how we can know other people have minds, Mill writes, "First, they have bodies like me, which I know in my own case to be the antecedent condition of feelings, and because, secondly, they exhibit the acts and outward signs, which in my own case I know by experience to be caused by feelings." In other words, other people act like I do in similar circumstances, implying they have similar inner lives. While the argument from analogy was once popular, it's now recognized as unfit for purpose. Rather than challenge solipsism, it seems to simply concede the whole argument upon which solipsism rests, that knowing other people have minds is logically unconfirmable. The argument from analogy resorts to insisting that, despite it being unconfirmable, other people must have minds anyway, because they look and act like I do. This is far from a refutation. Outward behavior is no logical guarantee of inner life. So as before, the solipsist can happily retort that solipsism remains a possibility. The subjective idealist George Berkeley had a view many equate to solipsism, but he actually offered what he thought was a solid refutation of it. Berkeley thought the only things in existence were minds and their potential contents. Examples of it are sensory perceptions, feelings, thoughts, and so on. To the question of whether a falling tree makes a noise when there's no one around to hear it, for instance, Berkeley answers with a definitive no. Things only exist if there is some kind of being there to perceive them. All else is superfluous and nonsensical. While both solipsists and Berkeley reject the existence of the world of matter, Berkeley is in favor of a universe that exists outside of our minds. According to Berkeley, this world is composed of all the possible mental stuff that could occupy human minds, sensorial perceptions, feelings, thoughts, etc., rather than physical matter, and it only exists because it is perceived by God's all-powerful intellect. Berkeley believed that in order to exist, one must be observed, which makes solipsism an impossibility. Since the solipsist is the sole thing in existence, they are unable to be perceived. They are unable to step outside of themselves in order to see themselves. And the solipsist cannot exist if they are not perceptible. However, one could argue that Berkeley believes God to be somewhat solipsistic. Berkeley's argument against solipsism is arguably the most logically sound one to date, but to accept it is to subscribe to Berkeley's essayist percipi metaphysics, which many find disagreeable. Another argument against solipsism is inspired by Wittgenstein's private language argument, as set out in his 1953 work, Philosophical Investigations, which states that a language understandable by only a single individual is incoherent. Public languages, Wittgenstein argues, can only result from public social contexts, so that we are able to express solipsism in public language thereby refutes solipsism. The solipsist, thinking solipsistic thoughts in a public language, presupposes the existence of the public, intersubjective world they seek to deny, undercutting their own position simply by expressing themselves. In essence, solipsism and other theories that require certainty create illusory standards for knowledge. We might not be able to definitively rule out solipsism. However, we also can't tell for sure that, for example, there isn't a gigantic, unseen spaghetti monster hanging in the sky. There's hardly anything we can be certain about. That doesn't mean solipsism is true. Solipsist defenders may argue that the enormous spaghetti monster comparison is unjust. Someone is taking a big risk when they suggest that a gigantic spaghetti monster rules over us invisibly from the skies. They are speculating on something beyond the scope of the available data. The solipsist, on the other hand, does not make this kind of jump. Rather, they exclude everything from the universe for which we do not have empirical proof, leaving us with nothing but our thoughts. Even yet, we might still believe that the solipsist is placing an excessively high bar on knowledge. It might be challenging to logically disprove solipsism, and it might always exist. But maybe that's great because we don't always know what will happen. Maybe we can continue to be receptive to different theories regarding the fundamental essence of existence. Maybe we could come to terms with the fact that we don't really know how our complex inner lives relate to the universe, or if there could ever be a rational basis for such a relationship between the internal, mental, and exterior, physical. This acceptance does not imply that solipsism is what we must all adopt. Although solipsism looks completely ludicrous, it has arguably never been, and maybe never could be, conclusively rejected. This pushes us to confront the limitations of our thinking and poses important questions in epistemology, metaphysics, and the philosophy of consciousness. But putting weird metaphysics aside, the most emotional response we might have to solipsism is probably to the inevitable and very isolating realization that, when you stop to think about it, we can never truly escape our own brains. We are unable to transcend ourselves by our actions, no matter how creative our fantasies or resolute our attempts to change our own thoughts. Life will always only be experienced via our brains. We can never truly know what other people are feeling, thinking, or going through. This might seem a depressing, even terrifying thought, but perhaps another view to take would be that the very inescapable nature of our own minds makes any connection we do manage to make to other minds we must believe rather than know to exist, ever more precious.